Hi, I'm Gordon from Camera Labs, and this is the Sigma 23mm f1.4 DCDN, a wide and bright prime lens designed for mirrorless cameras with cropped APS-C sensors. Originally launched in 2023 in Sony E, Leica L and Fujifilm X mounts, as of early 2025, it's also now available for Canon's RF system, and you can see it here mounted on an EOS R10 body. It costs around $600 or £480. Along with the 16mm 1.4 re-released alongside it, this means Sigma's full set of 4 1.4 APS-C primes, as well as their pair of 2.8 DCDN zooms, are now available in the Canon RF mount. Thank the maker! Now, since I've already reviewed this lens on other systems, I'd normally direct you to those for reference, and you still can if you like, but as third-party lenses for Canon RF are still a rarity, I thought I'd make a new video specifically for those neglected EOS R owners who'll be understandably excited by the prospect of a bright prime lens. So along with a bunch of new photos, tests and comparisons made with an EOS R body, I can also talk about specifics to this system, along with alternative options. Because while Canon doesn't yet offer any conventional prime lenses designed for their cropped EOS R bodies, they do have a full-frame prime lens that you may be interested in instead. So on the left is the Canon RF-24mm 1.8 STM, measuring a squat 74x63mm and weighing 270 grams. While on the right is the Sigma 23 1.4 DCDN, a tad narrower at 66mm, but longer at 77 and a little heavier at 340 grams. The Sigma is about 2/3 of a stop brighter, is weather sealed at the mount, and comes with a lens hood, but the Canon includes optical image stabilization, a custom control ring, and it's also corrected for use on full-frame bodies, should you think of upgrading in the future. Now, price-wise, Canon's UK price is higher than the Sigma, around £670 versus $480, but in the US, both lenses cost roughly the same, around $600 for either, so this makes for an interesting comparison. I'm going to show you how their features and quality measure up. First, a quick look at the design and controls. The Sigma 23 1.4 is a fairly long and plain looking lens, designed before the I series added things like aperture rings. So the only control is a generously wide manual focusing ring which turns nice and smoothly, and from the Canon menus you can also reconfigure this to operate as a custom control ring, albeit lacking clicky feedback as you turn it. At the end of the barrel is a 52mm filter thread, and unlike Canon's non-L lenses, it's also supplied with a bayonet hood, thanks Sigma, while also sporting sealing at the mount with a rubber grommet. Next, here's the Canon RF-24 1.8, again looking squatter in design. Canon's managed to squeeze in a smooth manual focusing ring, followed by a clicky customizable RF control ring. Both are free spinning, and while Sigma's manual focusing ring does feel smoother in operation, it is nice to have a separate RF control ring, and a clicky one at that. There's also two switches, one for auto and manual focus, and the other to enable or disable the optical image stabilization, or IS for short. IS is a major benefit of this lens over the Sigma, providing unstabilized bodies like the R10 with up to 5 stops of compensation. It's really useful to have. At the end of the barrel, the Canon shares the same 52mm filter thread, although unlike Sigma, no hood is supplied. Instead, you're going to need to buy the optional EW65B accessory. And looking at the mount, there's also no weather sealing. Focusing speed in single AF mode on the Sigma is fairly swift, a little faster than the Canon, as well as being quieter too. As seen on other Sigma lenses though, the active area when using continuous servo AF is a little bit smaller than Canon's own lenses. Now, Canon supports servo AF across pretty much the entire frame, but it restricts Sigma to operating in a slightly smaller cropped area, as you can see indicated by the markings on the screen. Okay, now for coverage, with Canon's cropped cameras reducing the field of view by 1.6 times, turning 23 and 24mm lenses to an equivalent of say 37 and 38mm. Here's the view from the Sigma 23, followed by the Canon 24. Unlike all modern lenses, both employ profiles to correct for distortion, and that's applied automatically to JPEGs. If you're shooting in RAW though, do remember to apply the profile or you'll suffer from distortion. Remember, these lenses are not designed to be used without the profiles. So these are the views after the profile has been applied, and as expected you can see the mild difference in coverage between them, but they're still in a similar ballpark, representing a mild wide angle. Let's stay at Brighton Pier for a comparison of their quality with a distant real-life subject, and as always I've angled the camera so that details run into the corners. Let's start with the Sigma 23 1.4, wide open to 1.4, and take a closer look in the middle. Here, the sharp details from the get-go. Let's keep that on the left and place the Canon 24 1.8 on the right at 1.8. Beyond the minor difference in magnification due to their focal lengths, there's similar detail here with a slight edge to the Canon. As I close down both lenses and use matching apertures, you'll see the Sigma detail remaining pretty much the same, but I'd say the Canon does gradually improve and becomes visibly crisper when both are close to f4. Now back to the Sigma at 1.4 before heading into the far corner. Here the details become softer, and when compared against the Canon at 1.8, well, the Canon is looking crisper. Note again the slightly different focal lengths mean that you're looking at slightly different parts of the pier, but I'm enlarging the same part of the sensor to compare their sharpness. As I gradually close their apertures, now at matching values, each lens shows improvement, but I'd say the Canon on the right remains ahead in ultimate crispness. To be fair, this is what you'd expect for a lens that's corrected for larger full-frame sensors, but as seen in my comparison between the Sigma 16 and the Canon RF-16, well, that's not always the case. Next for portraits and presentations, where I've switched to video to also test the continuous autofocus tracking. First up, the Sigma 23 1.4 at 1.4, where you can see a decent degree of blurring behind me, especially at close range. Also note a mild reduction in the field of view as I move closer due to focus breathing. Next for the Canon 24 at 1.8, its maximum aperture, where there's a little less blurring in the background. Like the Sigma, there's a mild reduction in coverage due to breathing, but nothing too distracting. Placing the two lenses side by side shows the slightly blurrier background you can expect from the Sigma at 1.4, that's 2/3 of a stop benefit over the Canon at 1.8, but also the slightly busier rendering of the Canon. They're fairly close, but ultimately I prefer the look of the Sigma in this test. What do you think? And finally, for a closer look at bokeh and rendering, here's my very light test, starting with the Sigma 23 at 1.4, where you can see decent sized bokeh blobs. Like most larger aperture lenses, these do elongate towards the corners, but they're otherwise mostly well behaved. Now let's put the Sigma on the left and the Canon on the right, both at their maximum apertures and from the same shooting distance. Again, the difference in subject size is down to slightly different focal lengths. The Sigma blobs are a tad larger, but there's not a huge amount in it here. Close the Sigma to 1.8 and the blobs become very similar in size and style to the Canon on the right when it's using the same aperture. And as I close their apertures further, they're staying roughly neck and neck, so beyond a minor benefit to the Sigma at their maximum apertures, I'd say a fairly similar result in this test. Now for my verdict, during which I'm going to show you some new photos of the Sigma 23 mounted on an EOS R10 body, and all of them, for fun, were taken at f1.4. Sigma's 23 1.4 DCDN is a welcome addition to the limited range of lenses designed for Canon's EOS R mirrorless cameras with cropped APS-C sensors. At the time I made this review, Canon had no conventional RF-S primes and only a handful of zooms with fairly uninspiring apertures, so to have a prime lens and a bright one at that is exciting news for owners of the R7 to the R100. In my tests it was fairly sharp across the frame and capable of shallow depth of field effects with attractive rendering, especially at portrait or presentation distances. But while Canon may not have any competing APS-C primes, it does have an affordable full-frame 24, which, depending on your location, may in fact cost much the same. In my test, the RF-24 1.8 was a tad sharper in the corners, and while the Sigma delivered slightly nicer looking bokeh, it was pretty close. Feature-wise, the Sigma is sealed at the mount and comes with a lens hood, but the Canon has optical image stabilization, a separate custom control ring, and compatibility with full-frame systems. If you already have a full-frame body or are thinking of upgrading in the near future, then I'd say go for the Canon. And for regions where the price is similar to the Sigma, it also makes a lot of sense to owners of crop bodies too. But if you're committed to APS-C and want that f1.4 aperture with autofocus, Sigma's lens is one of the only options at an affordable price. Sure, Canon also has a 24 1.4 with full weather sealing and a hood, but it's a full-frame L lens costing around $1,500, so it's in a completely different league. Also, don't forget Sigma now has all 4 of its DCDN APS-C primes available in the Canon RF mount, so if you're tempted by the aperture but feel 23 may not be quite the right length for you, then consider the 16, 30 or 56 models, and I've got reviews of all of them. Which brings me to the end of this review. If you found it useful, please do consider giving it a like and my channel a follow. Just a couple of clicks, it's nice and easy, and do let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.